ladies and gentlemen, and being a producer of Wrestle Massacre as well as Inside Movies Galore, I am David Strege, and welcome to Delusions of Grandeur. Enjoy the reviews. I certainly did. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again. I am your host, David Strege, here on Inside Movies Galore, where I am here in the room to review a movie for you guys. And let me just fix my camera here. So my cameraman is kind of absent at the moment, but I'm here to review the movie The Greatest Showman on Earth. And here in the room, I also have Chad here once again. Thank you for that review on Rampage earlier.
Yeah, Dave, no problem. Now, I saw The Greatest Showman trailers while I was at the theater for other shows, months back. And I was interested to see how the movie was. But since they classified it as a musical, I haven't seen it yet myself.
Okay. This was a first-time watch for me, ladies and gentlemen. So I just watched it right before I interviewed the guy named Chad about Rampage, which please see again, which I thought it was a great review. So in any case, relatively, this is a biographical musical in a sense, because here was a man who was a very good showman, and he also, surprisingly, was around for about 80 years, between 1800 and something to about 1900 and something. So he was around quite some time, but he started a company, and this is reality. He started a company, a variety troupe called Barnum's Grand Scientific and Musical Theory, or Theater, and it was shortly after he'd purchased the Scudder's American Museum, which he renamed it after himself, the P.T. Barnum Museum. So he started having, human curiosities such as Fiji the Mermaid and General Tom Thumb. And he also came up with the original Bearded Lady, the Siamese Twins, the things of that nature. Well, in this movie, we have Hugh Jackman starring as P.T. Barnum, and he's not new to the musical world because he was actually in Les Miserables back a couple of years, and I think there he played a phenomenal character. There he played a very strong character as Jean Valjean in Les Miserables, but he is back in this film, and this was a relatively different role for him, because normally we're used to seeing him with three claws as X-Men's Wolverine.
Now, Dave, are you a big fan of musicals normally, or is that something you look out for all the time?
it's not something I relatively look out for, but because I have a musical background and I've been to a lot of musicals myself in the past, I have a relatively decent interest into films that have a musical tune to them. So yeah, I would say it's not that I relatively look for that film to watch, because horror films are my cup of tea normally, but I don't mind watching musical numbered films, with good tunes.
Now,
Yeah.
did this movie seem like it was something you could see in a theater, live on stage, for the singing part, or did it just seem recorded?
Well, that's actually a difficult question, because on the one hand, uh, it was shot really beautifully. I mean, there was a moment where two singers were singing on a flying trapeze, and they were doing some kind of aerial acts, and the recording part works for that kind of thing. But I'm used to, you know, I'm used to like the Sound of Music, where these people actually sang it, and I believe that they sang it on the set instead of being recorded, because when you lip sync things, sometimes the lips don't move with the words the right way, and I could see that very marginally in the film, and that's what kind of distracts me just a little bit. Maybe I'm being a little bit too critical, but I look for things like this, and it's it's shot really, really well. The acting in here is brilliant. The choreography, it seemed like I hadn't seen some of it before, so it's not like it wasn't like it was like they were trying to bring the old time circus and bring it in a way that people could actually, really get into. And seeing some of these characters that he met along the way, and whatnot, their introductions,
Yeah,
how
I think everybody's heard about P.T. Barnum. You know, from whenever whatever time frame he lived in, I'm sure everybody's heard about him in the circus.
oh yeah, at least anyone who has been any kind of a showman has heard of P.T. Barnum. I mean, I mean, in reality, one of the quotes that he is most known for is, "There's a sucker born any minute." Well, I'll tell you how this story starts. It actually begins with a musical number of him on, already on stage, but then it goes back and shows a little bit of evidently his upbringing. His father was a tradesman of some sort, and he ended up meeting the younger Charity. I don't know what her last name was then, but she was of some uh, royalty, or at least her parents were richer than him. So they had a little scene where she was sipping her cup and learning etiquette, and he made her smile. Well, for there is always a way that people have always treated people when they are a different class, and that's what was shown in this, shown in this beginning scene. You know, he, the father, actually slapped the child across the face for, speaking to his daughter. Because people of his class just don't do that. So, but other than that, the film moved along. It moved into his teenage years, where he started to steal things, and then lo and behold, it was the freaks that started showing him kindness. that he started, it's like they showed a little bit of the beginning of how he, you know, how he started to create a family for these oddities down the road.
Now, did he feel like they were really his family, or was he just a con man trying to use those people?
I think it was. I think in reality, it was kind of a little bit both ways. But in the show, in this movie, I think they were trying to make him look more more like he was a family man. A family man. He actually treated them well. Well, the only thing is there is a moment where where he had actually had an act with an opera singer, and when there was a moment in society where there was like this really cool party to become more famous, uh, his freaks came to the party and wanted to be part of the crowd, and he shut the door on them. Because these were all people of the ton. These were all well dressed people. They all thought that there was a station that people had. That there were certain people who were allowed to be at these parties. So ultimately, the thing that I like most about this film is that it shows some of the that it wasn't just all prim and roses. It wasn't just all like smiles and daisies. It it didn't it didn't just show like one straightforward okay. He had all this success. It showed um, some of the protesting that was going on during the time. There were rioters in the streets.
So, did it show him how he was building his brand? You would say, and some of these.
It was showing how he was building his brand. Yes, in fact, there was even this critic that was really tough on him. His first show, and what he did is he showed him up, and he said, "Okay, let's reprint his review in New York and everywhere else, so that they can know exactly what kind of shit he's talking about." So that he wanted other people to come, and because he had so many people that were oddities or whatnot, he was showing some fakeness, with some of his people, but he ultimately put on a good show, and he put on a smile on people's faces, and that's something that the critic didn't enjoy. He and there were several instances where this critic and him were like back and forth, and I liked that they showed that that they showed that animosity a little bit, and ultimately there was even a moment where he was kissed by one of the singers that he had on the show, or on his show, and his wife left him for a brief time, and it showed some of the hardships. The circus burned down to the ground because of some of the rioting that involved it, because there was it was like he was loved and hated.
So it sounds like they tried to make the film incorporate his entire lifespan. Is that true?
Yeah, the only yeah, I would have to say so. And I think the music was different. Um, as far as his singing per se, I believe when he first started singing on some of his songs, he was a little bit soft, a little bit too soft. I think he needed to have a little bit more. roughness to his voice, because it sounded like his voice was a little soft. But his voice, once you heard where the song was going and heard how loud he was getting, I believe that he has learned a lot since Les Mis, because there is power behind his voice now.
So some of the Wolverine was coming out in him.
Yeah, I almost think so.
Now, he wasn't the only superhero, only actor from a superhero movie. That Zendaya was also in Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Yeah, she was actually Zendaya played Anna Wheeler, and that's another part of the movie that's involved. Anna Wheeler was part of a trapeze act, which was and she had a brother in there, played by Yeha Abdul Mateen II, and they were a phenomenal act from what I could see, and Zac Efron, who plays Philip Carlyle, who is a playwright that Hugh Jackman meets, where it seems like they both have a tongue-in-cheek, role with each other, and they, in a sense, become business partners. Philip Carlyle, because he came from royalty, he admired P.T. Barnum from afar, as a playwright, and so he invited him to be part of the circus, and eventually they became business partners, and ultimately that's what helped him out in the end, anyways. But there was a love interest between Philip Carlyle and the lovely Ann Wheeler, and I think some of the times that go with the film were portrayed through their love interest, because there was a moment where she met the parents of Philip Carlyle, and it was kind of a heartbreaking moment, where he had to tell them, well, if this is how I have to act, then I don't want to have any part of it. This kind of thing. And I know I'm saying some spoilers, folks, but I guess I really enjoyed this film. I wish I could have seen it where they were actually singing it on set, where it wasn't recorded, but it was shot really well. I think that the musical numbers were entertaining. It's not that I was surprised that Hugh Jackman was actually singing. I've heard him sing before, but it's interesting to see an actor break from a really serious action role to a song and dance routine. And that's what I have to say. Is there anything that, Chad, that you would ask me about this movie?
Were there any other people stand out? Any roles stand out, or was it just mainly Hugh Jackman as the star? Like, did Tom Thumb have a big role in it, or?
I actually think that each person actually got their shining moments, because Tom Thumb, well, he tracked him down where he lived, and he evidently had toy soldiers all strewn about his room or whatnot. And in order to get him to come on the show, he said, well, I see a soldier that could be riding a horse on the show, and not only will they not only will they enjoy your performance, but I think that they will salute you.
Sounds like it was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, there were some powerful moments, at least in the introduction points. So, I mean, it's. I guess I would say that I really enjoyed it. So, anyone who listens to this, obviously you see that I enjoyed it. I think that if you enjoy this kind of film, you should definitely go out and see it. I think it's the next big musical. I mean, it's no Jesus Christ Superstar, but it's definitely out there. And I think it was a little bit more factual to what was going on at that point in time for P.T. Barnum. So
I think P.T. Barnum's right up there with Jesus Christ being as famous as him, honestly.
oh yeah, most definitely. There is not a showman of any kind that probably will not remember at least something of the Barnum Circus. And he was known for saying the word humbug, or using it as a term. So he was definitely an interesting character. And well, in any case, I think that's enough for now, folks. So definitely, I don't want to spoil it for anyone else, but please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy this kind of a film, definitely check it out. It was entertaining for me. I hope it's entertaining for the rest of you. Thank you, Chad, once again for coming back on. It was a pleasure.
Sure, Dave. Glad to be part.
Awesome. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight, folks. And stay tuned for this next week, where we talk about Peter Benchley's The Beast, which was a made-for-TV movie. So later on this next Tuesday, I believe, and we have Sam. Sam is returning with us. So in any case, have a good evening, folks, and stay. Hopefully you enjoyed this broadcast.